What's up, everybody? Welcome back to What Is This Podcast? I'm your host, Dave, and with me, as always, is my boy, Gene.
What
up,
yo.
Gene?
What's happening, brother?
Not much. How you been, man?
Living the dream, my guy.
Yep.
I'm upright, I'm alive. Blood's coursing through my veins. I have nothing to complain about. I mean, I have plenty to complain about, but I'm not complaining.
But in this moment, you've got nothing.
I'm good, bro.
About.
I'm good, man. I'm alive and I'm happy and I'm appreciative. That's kind of the mindset I've been trying to take on lately. Just be more gracious and just in general.
That's awesome. I think that's a great way to go.
It's not easy.
No, of course not.
I'll tell you that it is not easy.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, anger and sadness are just easy to sit in as long as you want. It's easy to dwell in pain.
Sure.
It's hard to reconcile and be happy. Like that's the struggle.
That's the struggle.
The real struggle.
The beautiful struggle.
Mm-hmm. So for today, what we got going on is we're going to start a series, which is sort of based on an old podcast, our first podcast, which was called Who the Fuck Are We? But for branding and marketing purposes, we kind of decided to drop such an explicit name.
Yeah.
But now we're going to bring it back for as a kind of just a series that we'll do on the show, like once a month, whatever.
Why not?
If we feel like it.
Why not?
So in today's edition of Who the Fuck Are We, we're going to start off pretty strong.
We're coming in hot.
Literally. Hot and heavy. We're going to talk about porn and sex in general.
And all that great stuff.
Fucking. That's what we're talking about.
Or watching people fucking in this case.
Which is just, it's one of America's great pastimes at this point.
It really is. I mean, if it wasn't for porn, we wouldn't have the internet, right?
That's very true. And I feel like when I explain that to people, they give me looks and I don't appreciate it.
No, I mean, I would say that people who watch porn were the early adopters of the internet.
Yeah. But then you think about just the way, think about your phone, right? So at one time, phones would just get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And then people figured out you could watch videos on your phone.
Yep.
And then people figured out you could watch porn on your phone.
Forget about it, bro.
And now phones are getting bigger
and bigger and bigger. Yeah. Yeah, dude. What can we say? We love sex.
Sure.
It is the driving force of life.
Literally.
I mean, a majority of our behavior, and I can speak as a man, in some way is linked to me trying to figure out how to get laid somehow, right? Whether it's, my station in society, an accomplishment, I am doing it to make myself more desirable in a woman's eyes. And if you're, not somebody who's hetero, whatever gender you're into, yeah, man, so it makes sense that, that people are kind of fixated on this thing that we call pornography, because it triggers something biological. It's, if you're a guy and you see someone pops on porn, you immediately get turned on, and something happens where, the blood flow that, goes into your fucking dick is removed. There's removed from your other head, and you're just not able to be a logical person at that moment.
Because you're sort of just going into reproductive mode.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy, man. The days that you kind of go, you're sitting there, dick in hand, in this daze, right? And what's crazy is, obviously it's, for most people, it's kind of a shameful act, right? So if you live with other people, you're kind of Smokey and Friday after you smoke the sherm, you're kind of paranoid and
exactly. You gotta clean up. You gotta it's a whole thing.
But when you're alone and no one's coming, ain't no one's saving that little guy. He is going to get beat.
and then that's the thing though, that when it is over, speaking of shame, this odd feeling of shame does sort of wash
dude,
over you of what the hell
dude,
did I just do?
Yeah, dude.
And you have this like moment of like what I've heard referred to as the post-nut clarity.
Yeah.
So just warning for people, this is probably going to be a pretty explicit episode because I'm not going to censor myself.
Fuck it.
So if you are offended by such language, it's probably about time
This
to
is
hop
not
off.
this is not the show for you.
But there's that shame that is involved in just, that what did I do? A shame that doesn't, I would say, always come when you get finished having sex.
No. Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, I understand that it's adult entertainment.
Right.
Sex is very much so part of life, and especially adult life. But, like, it is a dirty thing, right? Because, I mean...
Yeah, it is.
I mean, because just even, like, the production of it, right? I've listened to a lot of interviews and podcasts of porn stars because, there are certain girls that I've liked over the years that I would follow. And I just, for whatever reason, was interested in who they actually were.
Right. I know. It's happened. I've done it.
And, and just something never really sat right with me, It just, obviously they're putting, it's an act, you know what I mean? They're, whenever they're being interviewed, or they're a persona,
right?
But there have been podcasts where you kind of get a deeper dive of who they actually are, and you learn about the industry, and it's like it's so gross sometimes, just like the horror stories, the accidents, the backgrounds of a lot of these girls. A lot of these girls are drug addicts, and they come from broken homes. Like, I mean, if you see a 7-man gangbang on a girl who looks like she weighs 115 pounds, it's more than likely that she's on drugs in order to get through that.
Right. But then that brings up questions of like consent, and like that's the thing. It's like, are you actually witnessing a rape in that moment? Because if she's that drugged out,
well, I mean, their contract signed.
But if you sign a contract and you're drunk or you're high, you're not signing a contract in a sound state of mind.
Yeah, but I mean,
so I think that's sort of like the gray area of all of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're in that case they're always high, right? They're drug addicts, right? So
and not every single one of these women is not
sure,
a drug
but
addict.
I mean, but in this case, when the question is consent.
Sure.
They're always in that state. I mean, if they're a drug addict, I would imagine they're always in that state. I don't think they're, signing. They have to be high in order to sign the contract.
No. I'm not saying, but like if they are, like, because there was one case that it was with one actress, and I don't really want to hype this video out, but this was a video that came out in the early 2000s, and it was brutal. It's a brutal scene. And she later claimed that, she was so drunk when she signed the contract, and she fought to get this removed from the internet, but nothing. That's not happening.
No, that's not happening.
And it's sort of broke her in the industry. Like she left the industry. I actually just found out because I was doing a little bit of research for this episode.
Sure.
I just found out that this woman passed away, but in a drunk driving accident where she was not the drunk driver. So it was sort of like ultra tragic how her life ended.
Fuck, bro.
But this scene was like so brutal that it like she really, you could tell she was different after that.
Sure.
So the story goes, because you don't know.
You never really know.
But so, and that's the thing though, is like, so our relationship with porn at this point in time is, it's really ingratiated itself into
mainstream,
the zeitgeist at large. Like everything is sort of, porn is part of everything. It's a very mainstream thing. It's less the dirty, shameful thing it was like in the 80s. But it's become such a big part of culture now. But do you think that overall that's not a good thing? Like that's kind of a negative?
Yes. Because sex is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Right? for many reasons, whether it's spiritual, whether it's for reproduction, and it's something that should be handled with care and handled respectfully.
Right.
And we live in a very prude society where, the topic of sex is usually brought up in the household, if ever, when it's too late.
Right.
When, it's, especially nowadays. I mean, back in the day, I had to work for my porn, right? I had to go to a convenience store with a little Asian guy who had a box under the counter or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Where now, if you have a device that connects to the internet, you immediately have access to porn. All you got to do is hit, yes, I am above the age of 18 years old.
Right. And it's any kind of porn you want.
And with that, and the implications of that is, you have these kids who are obviously super curious, especially, if a young man's balls just dropped and his hormones are going wild, he's curious. Yeah. And, he goes to a website like Pornhub and, clicks on a video of 3 guys, spit roasting a chick. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not healthy. That's not real. It's all fantasy, And
that becomes their sex education.
And that's not just guys. It's, women looking at this material thinking like, oh, this is what guys want in order to in order for me to please them. And that's not the case. Not I don't want to have a hardcore, porn scene every time I have sex. A, it's exhausting. B, it's not healthy if you want to have a nurturing relationship with a partner.
No, because it's not like what sex is supposed to be. Not supposed to be, because there's all different kinds of sex.
Sure.
But if you're gonna have a relationship, the sex it should be good, but it should be it's porn and intimacy are not.
No. Don't
go hand in hand.
No.
Though I will say that lately, the kind of porn that I would get off to more than anything is that kind
sensual.
There's more intimate, because it's sort of that's not what you get from most porn. That's sort of becoming the more provocative type of thing to me.
Interesting.
And it's not provocative at all. But to see 2 people have a really intimate moment is more hot to me than anything else at this point.
Well, you are a rarity, my friend.
Yeah.
Because the way it normally works, the more you consume and the more
the
it becomes
desensitization.
And the more hardcore that it tends to be, it takes a lot more for you to get off,
right?
And that's it's just one of those things where it's just man, it's been a long time. I remember when I was 16 and the idea of having sex with a girl, even having sex with a girl, was the best thing in the world. And granted, you get desensitized over time as you become used to something, but it's just. It really isn't the same, because I've been exposed to so much hardcore shit over the years,
But that's the thing, is I think I'm reverting because I'm so exhausted by all this hardcore shit that I'm so desensitized to it that a simple moment between 2 humans is more.
Yeah,
it's because I'm not used to it anymore.
That's interesting.
In terms of viewing that content. Now, I'll say I'm not. I've seen a lot of. I think every man just tries to find the most hardcore shit he can find at
that they can stomach.
You can go down. You just go down that rabbit hole.
That you can stomach, because there's a certain point where it's just whoa.
Oh yeah, I mean there's lines. There's lines that if you cross those lines, you're never fucking coming back. And I try not to cross those lines. I have my limits, as everybody should.
What's up, kid? Do you love your hometown and want to represent it to the fullest? Of course you do, guy. Whether you're going to the spa, running the dunks, or going down the Cape for the weekend, Boston Bread is the perfect gear to keep you looking wicked fresh, dude. Go to bostonbread.com right now and enter promo code WHITCAST to get 10% off your first order. That's WITCAST for 10% off. And remember the motto, kid. Boston born, Boston bred, and when we die, we'll be Boston dead.
No, it's wild, dude. It's absolutely wild. The kind of, what's interesting is, past couple of years, I have actually been reading comments, And if you actually take the time to read some of the comments,
I've done that.
It's fucking
wild,
hilarious, especially like the debates. Right, there'll be full-on debates under a comment, debating whether or not two guys a DVP, and for those who don't know what that is, a double vaginal penetration scene, is gay or not, or if a chick sucking two cocks, it's definitely homoerotic.
Yeah,
for sure. Are the guys gay? I really feel like most of the guys in porn are at least bi-curious. I mean,
sure.
Just the being around that energy, and you think we're desensitized, they must be desensitized.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they live that life.
Yeah, dude. And I remember in an interview with I believe it was Kelly Devine. She hasn't been in the industry for a long time, but she was an Italian gal who did mostly interracial porn back in the day, and she would say, actually I think it was Sarah J, another girl of kind of the same category.
Yes.
She was saying that she thinks 75% of the males were at least bisexual in the porn industry.
That makes sense.
Yeah, dude. You're just a hypersexual individual.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the thing, is I think you just enjoy the act of sex, and
sure.
you don't. It's just, it doesn't matter where that's coming from.
Sure.
Which, I mean, that's that's a thing.
Yeah. Some people like crack. Some people like other forms of crack.
Right. And I think, but I mean, because this conversation is sort of hard to have, where, like, I think, porn has done some good things for the world.
Like what?
I don't know. Maybe it hasn't. But I don't want to just, like, knock it all together. Like, it has brought sex more into the mainstream, which in some ways I do think is good, because I think America specifically has a really, really bad relationship with sex.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be fixed. Like, the fact that we can go on turn on the television and just see people getting blown away indiscriminately, like on network television now. Yeah. Like Chicago PD is literally one of the most violent fucking shows I've ever watched in my entire life. Yeah. And it's on, like, CBS. And it's like, I would even argue that it's more violent than Breaking Bad.
That's saying something.
And, like, but that is just totally fine. But nudity and sex is, we can't go there. We can't do that. We can't show nipples. We can't show dicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, but not that I want a face full of dick all the time.
I'd hope not. Oh, I mean, that's your thing. That's your thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to judge anybody.
But you are a married man. You are married to a woman. So
but
that
I'm
would
not,
be good.
like, why? Like, why is that? And obviously, like, I think religion is the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, we're founded on Puritan values,
But I feel like we could solve not all the problems, because, there's a lot of shit that is involved. I think, power dynamics. There's a lot of psychology that goes into sex. But if we had a better relationship with it, I think we could solve some issues regarding sex and non-aggravated sexual assault.
Sure. No.
Because, like you said earlier, like, there's so much shame involved in sex and sexuality.
Yeah.
Like, who you are as, like, a sexual being. You're just made to feel bad about it all the time. If you enjoy sex, if you're a woman specifically, you're just a slut. And it's like, well, why can't a woman just fucking enjoy having sex? Like, what's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's healthy. Hey, in my past experience, if a girl's not coming regularly, you have problems in your hands.
Explain.
Well, they become irritable, right? From my experience, women tend to feel needed, desired more specifically. Sure. They tend to be, and that's a form of reminding your woman that you love her, that you desire her, is, you wanting to have sex with her.
Yes.
And in the act, she wants to get her shit off, right? And if you're not able to make her come, or at least she's not coming, pretty regularly, I find in my experience they become irritable. A very influential book that I've read multiple times is The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity, and it talks about just that. When you have sex with a woman, you better make sure she comes, because it helps with overall mood regulation.
Okay.
And this is not something that I've researched or sourced, at least when it comes to like medical research, like Western medicine, but like it's a Taoist philosophy that's been around for thousands of years.
Now, does it matter whether it's through penetration or through oral?
Nope. As long as she gets off.
Okay.
As long as she gets off.
You have to do that.
Not necessarily.
Right.
But like, I mean, if you're committing the act, you're there. You
might as well. But that's the thing. It's like, even I find myself not satisfied, and I think a lot of men probably feel this. Like, if it's like I don't like just me.
No, I don't either.
Like, I feel that that's a failure of an experience.
I mean, and I get off watching girls get off. That's what turns me on.
Yeah.
A woman who is aroused and enjoying herself. That's what gets my rocks off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if I am eating a girl out and she's coming and I have my dick in my hand, I'm getting myself off. That's cool with me.
It's hot.
That's hot to me. You know what I mean? I'm not nut chasing when I'm having sex with a girl. I'm like, I need to get this. No. Right. I am trying to get myself aroused watching this woman be aroused, and it's nothing hotter,
It's the shared experience that makes it truly enjoyable.
Sure.
I mean, but it seems like there are a lot of men out there who I think they just want to get it off.
Yeah, and that's no fun,
No. I mean, somehow it's fun for them, but I just feel like if that's your goal, dude, you got a hand.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking rub one out.
Yeah.
Go to fucking bed.
Well, going back to what I was saying earlier about, young boys and young girls learning how to have sex through porn, because, porn is, inherently male centric.
Sure.
Right.
Which I think is starting to change a little bit. I think that
yeah, I mean, there's definitely porn for women for sure, but
even it seems like a lot more women are starting to take control and direct and do different things.
Sure.
Like, you got like somebody like Tory Lane, who directed a lot of stuff. I think she took a lot of stuff into her own hands.
Sure, but at the end of the day, it's who's buying the subscriptions?
Oh no, yeah.
For the most part, it's men, and it's at the end of the day, it's supply and demand, and a majority of the content will be made for males.
Sure.
And the movie ends when the guy nuts. You know what I mean? Like, everything is centered around a male's pleasure, for the most part.
Gaze.
And, you know what I mean? So I can see where that kind of mindset comes from.
Sure.
But it's not about that. In Taoist philosophy, when it comes to sex, the female is in fact the superior one. Right, and it's backwards here because it's all about the jackhammer and destroying the woman in front of you. Where in Taoism, it's the complete opposite. It's the woman who's the superior one, and ultimately she is the one who directs, the whole act.
Sure, but I think you've hit on a very important thing: is that in American culture, the woman is nothing more than an object.
Yeah.
She's nothing like, it's really, she's seen as more of just a means to an end.
Yeah.
To get you to that place.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to religion and it's I hate to be that guy, but that patriarchal kind of,
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but it's not, it's true.
It's true. It's true. We're a Judeo-Christian country, and it's all about the Father in heaven. Man is what created life, and back east they don't have gods like that, these deities. You know what I mean? There's Buddha, but he's more of like a figurehead.
Yeah, but Buddha was a man.
Exactly.
Buddha was alive.
Exactly. You know. So yeah. You know, it's very, very interesting when it comes to the subject of sex, particularly in the States.
Right, and it's just like, again, like I just think like it's such a normal biological thing.
Yeah.
That we just can't seem to get fucking over it.
No.
And it's like, you know, like people are naked all the time.
Sure.
And I think it, like, nudity, like, we have a big problem with nudity in general. And I mean, I get it from a religious perspective, but I don't get it.
It makes sense. I mean, I can only picture society 400 or 500 years ago where, you know, policing wasn't as, I don't know, as strong, I guess is the word I can think of right now, as it is right now. Right? You know, I'm sure there were a lot of, I mean, being raped is a serious, I mean, it still is now, but back then, you know what I mean? Like, you know, a woman being raped, I would imagine it was a lot more common.
Probably, yeah.
Right? And I can see where, you know, restrictions on public nudity would be mandated because, you know, you're just trying to, deter that kind of behavior.
Sure.
You know, all it takes is one guy getting his fucking dick hard and he goes into that gaze, that mode we were talking about earlier, you know?
And I'm not talking I'm talking less about people just walking around in the streets naked than I am with depictions of nudity in media.
Sure.
Like, that's more of what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Like, if you get people, because a naked body isn't always a sexual thing. But it's always, whenever somebody's naked, it's always sexualized.
Yeah.
But it's not always sexual. Like, to be naked is not inherently sexual.
No, that's a cultural thing.
Right. So, I think that's kind of a problem, is that, like, no matter when a person, specifically a woman, is naked, it's always in a sexual manner.
Agreed. No, sex has definitely been perverted here in the States.
And I think it's perversion. Like, it's been corrupted to a point where it isn't this natural sort of beautiful act between two people. It's this dirty, disgusting, you know, graphic, hardcore act between two people.
Yeah.
It's a power play.
It is. And we can't get enough of it.
No, and that's the thing, is we're addicted to it at this point.
Yeah. I mean,
and, you know, and it's like, but it's like the things that are being bred out of it now. And it's like, I don't want to kink shame anybody, and I think that's sort of the problem. Like, your thing is your thing.
Yeah.
But I just have to say, the amount of incest porn that exists in the world right now
is insane.
Is not good.
And it's a supply and demand thing. I remember I was watching a interview with Lena Paul, and she was talking about that. She was just like, yo, listen, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there is a lot of, you know, stepdad and stepmom porn out there. But the only reason why that's the case is because that's what people are watching.
Right. And I think that's the most disturbing thing. It's not that they're making it. It's the reason that they're making it. It's because people are fucking watching it.
Yo, I you know, and I've mentioned this before. You know, Pornhub releases their analytics every year at the end of the year.
Sure.
And when you look at the map, you know, in the United States, you like, especially down south, like in the most homophobic, racist regions in the country, the number one most searched terms are ebony, BBC, ebony lesbian. You know, like, what is that? And it's not just black people watching it, obviously. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's white people, you know, watching it as well. You know, there's this thing in this country where we sexualize the things, we desire the things that we can't have.
Sure.
Right? Because if you go to other countries, like in Turkey, the number one most, you know, search term is Turkish porn. Same thing like in France. You know what I mean? French, I'm sure you can break it down little regions and stuff, but like usually in other countries, they're searching the porn of their people. With us, we're searching the porn of things that we can't have or shouldn't have, you know?
The things that we are ashamed of.
Yeah, you know, like I remember back in like the early 2000s, I came across this site, with a bunch of, they called mandingos in Florida, and they would have wives of KKK members come down and they would pound them out in front of their husbands. These are guys who are
cucks,
right? Like, these are guys who are supposed to hate the black man,
but they're getting off to a black man railing
right there in front of them. Like, what is that? But that's
the thing. It's like there's so much psychology tied into this that, and again, like I think shame is one of the biggest things. Like, it all sort of revolves. A lot of sex, revolves around shame. These days, like, the things you're watching are sort of like, you're ashamed. In normal life, you're never going to admit to this, and it's something that you're ashamed of. But when you're alone by yourself in the dark,
fucking hell, man,
like, you can just sort of let it out and experience it by yourself, which is I think is a net positive, where it allows people a safety net to sort of go through some
and explore,
things,
sure,
and explore by themselves.
Yeah.
But then it's sort of like, it's still everything else around it, because it's sort of like, because we have such a bad relationship with sex outside, the only place you can explore it is inside. Whereas, like, if a white dude from Alabama, like, didn't feel so negatively about having sex with a black woman, he would just go fucking have sex with a black woman, and it wouldn't be a goddamn problem.
Yeah, sure.
But because, and I'm sorry to pick on Alabama, it's just sort of the first fucking state that came into my mind. But, but because there's shame involved in that, because of your family, because of whatever, that's something you have to do in private, by yourself, on the internet. Do you think if we had a better relationship with sex in general,
of course,
a less puritanical look at it, do you think that would sort of help some instances of sexual assault? I mean, again, like, I don't think rapes would be...
No, that's just part of the human condition.
Right. I think that has more to do with power and violence than it does to do with a bad relationship to sex.
I would say it's both. But yes, I think the world would be a better place in regards to sex. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like we all have some deep-seated dark desires when it comes to sex. I mean, look at Japan, for crying out loud, right? They're not a Christian country. No. You know what I mean? They're definitely very much Eastern in thinking. And they're... Well, to be fair, they are very repressed. I mean, in order to watch porn for a while, it would be pixelated. So I guess there is repression there, and it's coming out in some weird ways.
But there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the thing. It's like the amount of repression and shame involved in thinking about sex and talking about sex and having sex.
Sure.
I feel like that's creating some of the fucking
weird
problems.
shit. They're into some weird shit.
But tentacle porn, the only place you really find that is in Japanese hentai.
Sure. Yeah. It's insane, dude. Absolutely insane, man.
But there you go. Like, a lot of repression. Like, you were made to feel bad about it. You didn't have... Like, I forget, it was an Asian country, but somebody was talking about how, like, their sexual education is non-existent, and that's why there's so many specific problems regarding sex in these places. Yeah. Because they're just not... There's no dialogue about it. Like,
it's a hard conversation to have, right? Especially, one thing that shocked me kind of growing up was before, like, the internet age, how little women, knew their bodies.
Sure.
Right? I remember, I had a girlfriend within the past, I would say 6-7 years, who, was probably a couple years younger than I was. At the time, I was like, early 30s. She was late 20s. when we had sex, like it felt like for her it was like a new experience because she wasn't that experienced, and like I would do things to her body. She was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing that?" And it's from a lot of tips that I got from that book. I mean, when I say that book was super influential, and then the title is called "The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity." They're in the sex section. It actually shows you actual techniques to arouse women and in the different phases and what to look out for, because a woman communicates with her body, right? She's literally, if you know how to read the tells, she's telling you exactly what it is she wants you to do at that moment, and this book lays it out, and it's fucking accurate as fuck.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick this book.
It's a great book. What were we talking about? Where were we going with that?
Women not really.
Yeah, so it's before the internet, man, and it's just there's very little knowledge on what sex is, and how to have it. Before, it was just when a man felt like when he was feeling freaky and he wanted to get down, he would do it. And because there was very little education, you'd have these women who would have like 9-10 kids, you know what I mean, and more often than not, they didn't want to have that many kids. I mean, I can't imagine a woman wanting to be pregnant for her whole adult life.
No.
And that's the case for a lot of women, unfortunately.
Exhausting. And I'm not...
Dude, I can't imagine, man. I cannot imagine.
Right, but even just in the education, there is no education. I mean, there is.
Yeah.
But because it's, again, like...
It's politicized.
It's politicized, and it's like but what is the danger? Do you think that teaching kids about sex is going to make them have more sex? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think they'll know now. Like, if you don't shame them and scare the shit out of them, but you just educate them, they'll know.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't do this, do that.
Yeah.
But
who's responsible? Is it the school's responsibility? Is it the parents' responsibility? I mean, the answer is the parents.
It's
obviously.
It's, at the end of the day, it is. But that's a conversation that parents don't. It's a very uncomfortable conversation that parents don't want to have with their children. And I remember, and this ties into sex sort of, but two Super Bowls ago, J-Lo and Shakira were the halftime show.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out there and they were, looking how they looking good, but they were, dancing in provocative ways. And I remember there was an outcry. This is ridiculous. This is pornographic. I saw that word thrown around.
That's ridiculous.
And it's like they're dancing, guys.
I'll show you
chill the fuck out. And they're like, our children shouldn't have to see this. And in my head, I wasn't a dad at the time, but I still agree with this now. It's like, well, here you go. Here's a chance for you to fucking be a parent.
Facts.
And to talk to your child about something.
Facts.
Or you can just turn the TV off, ignore the problem, and then you just have to have it down the line. But at some point you're gonna, or you don't have that awkward conversation and you run the risk of some bad shit fucking happening.
Yeah.
I remember, so Let's Talk About Sex came on the radio. And my mom was just like, I wasn't super young, but I wasn't super old either. She didn't have an explicit conversation with me, but she sort of stopped for a minute and was like, do you know what they're talking about? And I was like, no. And she was like, okay, well, blah, 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 blah. And she had the most basic sex conversation she could have with me.
Good for her.
But it was good. That was a positive
That's all it takes.
moment in my life. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't derogatory.
It wasn't judgmental.
It was just a biological conversation about sex.
Sure.
And that was all it was. It was just the basic understanding of what it is. And that's an awkward conversation, but that's parenting to me. Having awkward conversations, that's parenting. But people don't want to do that. They want to have the kid and then sort of let the kid figure shit out on their own. And it's some of that, yeah. But this, I think, is becoming too sensitive of an issue for us to just skirt around it all the time. And a lot of it was it's like a good Christian household. We shouldn't be seeing this stuff.
Fuck that.
Turn the television off.
Fuck that, dude.
Like, turn the television off or have the awkward conversation and be a fucking parent.
What usually ends up happening to the girls that go to Catholic schools? I don't want to generalize.
I mean, I think it depends.
I don't want to generalize, but all right. So, what is the reputation of girls who go to Catholic school?
Yeah, I mean, there's many songs written about Catholic school girls.
Skanks.
Yeah.
Right? They're hot in the pants.
Sure.
Right? All that shame, all that guilt.
Yeah.
That says something.
But then there you go. In Catholic schools, like, abstinence is the dumbest form of sexual education, in my opinion.
Look, I mean,
because it's unrealistic.
I mean, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of priests all across the world smelling like little boy booty holes.
Right. Now, I think that's a whole other fucking conversation.
But I think that's a large in part to do with repression.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Not
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, not you. We all have urges. We all have impulses, and one of the most difficult things as a human beings is controlling and directing those impulses. But they're going to happen.
Right.
Right. So we have to teach people how to handle these impulses and urges in a healthy manner. If not, like I said, you have these scandals where you have these priests taking advantage of these young men, and I'm sure a lot of cases young women.
Sure.
And it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's totally unfortunate. And again, it comes down to shame. They're not taught about it. They're taught to be ashamed of having those urges.
Yeah.
Ashamed. I mean, I'm sorry. If you have urges to have sex with children, you should be ashamed. That's something you should fucking be ashamed of.
I agree. But that's a thing. That's a thing. But just a couple hundred years ago, it was totally normal for a grown ass man to have sex with a 13-year-old.
I think that's part of the. We're not evolutionary. Some people have not evolved. That it's evolutionary hasn't gone out of the system yet.
I read somewhere that an evolutionary change within a species takes 25,000 years.
Sure.
It's only been a couple 100 years.
Right.
And for me, I don't desire kids.
No.
I think mostly because I've been conditioned to think this is a bad thing.
Absolutely.
Once I got to
once
I got to 19, 20 years old, I just averted my eyes.
Sure.
I just avert my eyes, and then now it just becomes habit. I don't even look in their direction.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But if you go to just south of the border, you can have sex with a 13, 14-year-old girl. It's totally legal.
Right.
So I wonder how much of that is happening down there. Because it's normal. It's viewed as a normal thing.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild,
but it's also their society. I definitely disagree with it. But
it's not healthy. I don't see it as being healthy,
because I mean, a big part of why that happened back in the day is because we only lived until we were 35.
Sure.
So it was we got to get in early and reproduce.
And I'm playing devil's advocate here, all right? So is having consensual sex, if you're a grown man with a 13, 14-year-old girl, is that morally wrong?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. So when did that line shift? At what point is it our age range? Well, after 30, if the expectancy.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the older we started becoming, and the longer. Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. As the life expectancy rose, it sort of became we don't have to reproduce so young anymore.
So where was that line?
I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense because, the longer the life expectancy, inherently your childhood's longer, right? Because if your expectancy, if your life expectancy is 35 years old, you're a fucking adult when you're 13.
Yes, and that's what was happening. They were adults back then.
Yeah. That
but
makes
now
sense
they're
to me.
not.
Yeah.
And like it's sort of like, you know, it's probably also going to take you a little bit longer to develop mentally.
Sure.
Because of that
I mean,
factor.
you're not fully developed until you're 24 years old.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But that's the thing is like, you know, these kids, they have no concept of what they're actually doing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And it's such a powerful thing, you know. You have the power to reproduce, to make people.
Yeah. And I think that's
a huge responsibility.
A lot of that is more of a power dynamic than it is sort of anything else. It's like a controlled.
Sure.
Because like if you're, so like I'm gonna just be honest with everybody. My wife's probably not gonna be happy with this, but I like older women. I've always loved older women. Always skewed older.
Always.
Like I just like old. Like my wife is 6 years older than I.
Dude, honestly, like a majority of the women I've slept with are at least 10 years older than I have. And a majority.
It's just
ever since I was younger.
I don't know. It's just been.
Just something
it's more
about.
Interesting.
It's just something about a mature woman who has gone past that, you know, all those insecurities, that knows what she wants.
I think that's the thing. It's like there's a comfortability that you're not going to get.
And they're nasty. Nasty. Straight up, bro. Older women are nasty.
Yeah.
Look you dead in your fucking eye and spit on it.
But I think so for me, I want to be with a woman who's either just around my age or older than me.
Yeah.
Because there's an intellectual,
sure.
You know, level. There's a more level playing field on an intellectual level.
You know what's interesting about that? R. Kelly, right?
Oh God.
It's well known that he likes the younger girls.
Well,
but there has been an explanation, not to justify it, but an explanation that makes sense why a guy, such a high-profile individual, who virtually can fuck anybody in his large fan base.
Right.
You know, it's a plethora of fucking beautiful women he has access to.
I said, "Are you fucking this midget?" She said, "Yeah, I'm fucking this midget."
Right? But why does he choose to piss on 14-year-old girls? And the explanation is, well, it's well known that he's illiterate. He doesn't know how to read.
Okay.
Right? Did you know that?
No.
No, he can't read, right? Which makes his music even more genius, right? In my eyes,
yeah.
right? He doesn't know how to read, right? He's illiterate. So, on an intellectual level,
he's the same
age as a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl. Because think about it. You know, yeah, he can hook up with a beautiful girl and she, you know, is enthralled by the situation and can't believe that she is making love to a god, right? But you spend enough time with somebody, you know what I mean? They become more human and you become disillusioned. What the fuck are you going to talk about?
Right.
You know? But if you can't read, you know, developmentally, you're 13, 14, 15
sure.
years old.
Michael Jackson.
See, here's the thing.
But Michael Jackson was a child in his mind.
Yes.
Because he got famous when he was, what, like 9?
Yeah. It's just a tragic story, you know? The price of fame at that level.
But he related to children.
Sure.
Because that's sort of when he stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. And he never had a childhood, really.
Right.
You know, he was a workhorse since the beginning, and you know he was abused. You know, obviously, it's apparent. You know, it's well documented.
Yeah, Joe Jackson's a piece of shit.
Yeah, you know, but he had a formula for success. You know,
sure.
Was it worth the cost? That's up to you. You know what I mean? That's for you to decide.
I mean, we can jokingly say like yes because we got Thriller, but at the same time,
yeah, there's a price to everything, man. But yeah, you know, honestly, man, like I kind of go back and forth whether or not he actually did it. If he was actually taking advantage of these kids.
Sure. I think my stance is, I mean, after that last documentary, which I haven't watched, that Finding Neverland or whatever it was, I haven't watched, but you know, hearing the things, it's like, I don't think we're ever really going to know what happened.
Yeah.
But did he do inappropriate shit?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
But did he have sex with any of those people?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know that he did. That's my hang up. Was he very inappropriate with them?
Oh yeah,
100%.
And the parents allowed it.
But did it cross that line? That's
up for speculation.
Right. But again, just like you said, like it's an intellectual, but I also think for some men they have problems having intellectual, intimate relationships with women their own age. But if they can control, because they'd have to give up a certain amount of control in that kind of relationship, you have to give up a certain amount of control.
Of course, it's compromise,
and especially in an intimate sexual moment, there is an amount of control that you have to give up.
Sure.
Where you're, and some men want to be dominated and all that kind of shit, but that's sort of a different thing. But some men, I don't think, can give up that control. So to go after young women who don't have any sort of relationship with any of this stuff, you can control that. Because the teenage mind is very very pliable. 100%. And that's the problem. So you can convince them that this is good, this is great, be with me, blah blah blah. Like there weren't a ton of girls that I went to high school with that had relationships with older men, but there were enough where it was like
it's fucking creepy. You have these 22-year-old kids with 15.
Yeah, I don't.
Year olds. Like that's fucking crazy.
But it's like some of them would be like dating.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you people doing together? Like she can't go to the fucking bar with you.
Oh, he's fucking her.
What the fuck are you doing?
He's fucking her in the back of his fucking Bento.
So grimy.
It is. But, going back to these urges or these impulses, some people just can't control it. They may know it's wrong, but they act on it. It's like if you smoke cigarettes, it's fucking your shit up, but you can't help it.
Oh, love it.
You can't help it, and some people just get to a point where they accept themselves for who they are, and they just do what they possibly can to not get in trouble.
It's like the only time that's fucking dangerous.
It's a scary world out there, and the rise of the conversation of sex trafficking and kind of the spotlight revealing how big of a fucking problem it is.
But even with porn,
I didn't realize it was that bad. Like from cam girls to, do you know what I mean? Like I didn't realize it was that bad. That like there's a lot of women out there that are doing this shit against their will.
Yes, but that's so we sort of come back to a place we started. Like at one point, are we all just watching?
Yes.
Rape all the time.
Yes.
Just rape all the time.
On some level, yes, to a degree. To it's 5 o'clock. To a degree, yes.
But also, like, there's these videos I watch sometimes where it's just Ask Reddit threads that a computer voice reads. Because I put them on and then I go do other shit and I just listen to it.
Yep.
And a couple of them are about porn. It's like, people in the porn industry, what are some secrets that you can tell? And one of the ones that came up more often than not are, if you're in the 18 or plus categories or the teen categories, most of those girls are 15, 16.
That's fucking wild, dude. And you can't tell these days. These girls are so mature looking. You have these kids who are 9, 8, 10 years old that are wearing like adult outfits.
Sure.
I don't know if it's the milk. I don't know if it's the fucking processed foods, but like you have these women who are young women that are 13, 14 years old that are fully developed and, they have women's bodies.
Yes.
But obviously they're kids.
And we'll be right back. And here's a little word from our sponsor.
Thing about porn is, I feel like porn addiction is a much more of an issue than
what's a real thing
than the mainstream is aware of, right? Because it's an addiction that you have in silence, right? If you're a heroin addict, if you're a coke addict,
you can see that.
If you're a sex addict, it's gonna manifest in public somehow. Mm-hmm. But with porn, you can hide that shit forever.
I think there was a True Life about porn addiction once.
Okay.
And the dude didn't leave his room.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
One of them. Like one of the people who was
dude.
to it.
You know what I'm saying? And it's a serious issue, and it literally rewires your brain, right? And there's a thing called porn brain. You know what I mean? Where it fucks with your relationships. It fucks with how you just function in life. You know what I mean? And if you are introduced to something like porn at 11, 12, 13 years old,
like we were,
bro, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're set up to fail.
Right. Unless you, but again, like I had a parent who had an honest discussion with me about sex, so I sort of knew.
Sure.
This isn't real.
Sure.
But most people don't. Like, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
Yeah. And if you're somebody who is afraid of intimacy or afraid of the opposite sex, and well, especially if you're a male, I can speak from a male perspective.
I think that's a big male problem, though, is fear of intimacy.
Instead of being, finding women to be intimate with, in order to, to fulfill the needs of these urges, you're just going to settle for porn.
Right.
You know what I mean? And live a lifetime just getting off that way. Mm-hmm. And I would have to suspect that there is a correlation between porn consumption and the drop of the average testosterone levels within males.
Why do you think the correlation is?
Well, it's just, I would think that males in general probably beat off less, was beating off less
back in the day
when there wasn't porn. You know what I'm saying? When there were just magazines and it was just harder to get to where, if you want to bust a nut, you can do it first thing in the morning watching some hardcore shit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And there are other arguments like, plastics and these chemicals that fuck with our hormones. And I'm sure that's, also the case. But there has to be some correlation, man, with the rise of consumption of pornography and the decline of just testosterone levels. So do you think overall,
us getting it out more often
is
having a negative effect?
Yeah. They say that on average, you only get 10,000 squirts on nuts in a lifetime. And you'll fucking, you know what I mean? You'll wear that out a lot quicker with porn, with access to porn. Nuts, right? Nuts. No pun intended.
Well, that's very interesting, though. Like, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool. It's a body part, and it wears out. What's one of the issues with women in porn is that their parts wear out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, if you look at a porn star who came in when she was 18 years old versus when she was 30 years old, and she's graduated to things like gangbangs and hardcore shit, just look at her anatomy, and you'll notice a visible difference.
There's mileage.
One person that comes to mind is Adriana Chechik. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Yes. But she's got a big YouTube presence now.
Really?
Yeah, she's like a streamer, like a video game streamer.
Yo, dude, honestly...
She just had a bunch of plastic surgery, too, I think.
And that's what happens when you get older, man. She's old. I think she's pushing toward 30 now, right?
Think about that. That's old in the industry.
Yeah, and
like, I'm 34, and I still feel like not that old.
Bro, what's sad is that's their value. Perceived, like, there's one girl, what's that Mexican chick's name?
It does not narrow it down.
No, she is Katrina. She has a tattoo on her forehead, and she has a tattoo on her ass that says slut.
That
Katrina
I'm not familiar with
something.
Her.
But she's gorgeous, right? She was always natural, gorgeous girl. Past couple years, got a bunch of work done, got some fake tits, and just like, why would you ruin such a good thing?
She has to.
She's gotten older. Tits probably sag a little more than and obviously she's hyper aware of her appearance because that's her money maker. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just the psychological ramifications of being in that industry and growing up and growing old. And because, like, honestly, like, that Botox plastic surgery shit, when it's obvious, is not attractive to me. You look weird to me.
Yeah.
Fake asses, these fucking BBLs, that shit's gross to me. But these women feel like that's what they need to do in order to maintain that level of sexual attraction. Yeah, man.
You could just go to a gym.
It's not that easy, but it's not that easy, man.
No,
you know what I mean? Like
that's a very kind of an ignorant statement.
You know, like
because your body, like you're right, it just wears out.
Yeah,
like it's just wear and tear, which is gross.
You know, and like I can only imagine how desensitized these women are. You know what I mean? Being penetrated at the levels with these guys who have unrealistically large penises. Like they account for 1% of the population.
So Lisa Ann did a talk like at Oxford or something like that.
Okay.
And she said most of these guys have the same size penis as you. We just use lenses and video trickery to make it seem like most of these guys.
Yo.
Like, there's obviously some dudes with
Oh, bro, I can think of a few that are just
dick.
hogs.
But she was saying like a decent amount of them are not as big as you think they are.
Yeah, dude.
And she specifically says a fisheye lens goes a long way.
Oh, I believe it. You know, I believe it, dude. You know, and just these unrealistic expectations. I mean, most women can't take dicks that large. You know what I'm saying? Like the vaginal canal on average is 5 inches deep. You know what I'm saying? Which is the average size, 5.5 inches is the average, length of a penis. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, but the thing about like the psychological ramifications of these 13, 14-year-old kids who for the most part are in that 5 to 6.5 inch range, thinking that they're not good enough, they're not adequate enough. And what that does as far as, meeting women is like, well, I shouldn't bother because I can't satisfy her because I don't have a hog and this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Like, that's why I feel like porn has a net negative effect on society. I feel like it's not a good thing in society, how it's, portrayed, how it's distributed, the access of it. It's all wrong. It's too much. But it's just, but like how, you can't contain the storm at this point.
That's the thing. It's like it's so far out of the box that it's impossible to put it back in. So we have to find new ways to sort of deal with it and safeguard children from it. And it really comes down to education and parenting. But yeah, I think we've really gone over it. And at the end of the day, as the point of this is called, who the fuck are we?
That's
We're just two schmucks on the internet.
That's it, bro. That's it.
But yeah, so thanks for showing up, part of it, and joining us in this discussion. And are you good to wrap this up right now? All right. So yeah, thank you for helping us again figure out what is this podcast.
Catch us next time.
And as always, I have been Dave.
And I'm your boy, Gene.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.